Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Great English Podcast. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Mark. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic, rural life versus urban life.
But before moving on to our discussion, please hit the like button and comment which life you prefer, rural or urban. It's a topic close to many of our hearts, whether you're a city dweller or someone who enjoys the peace of the countryside.
To help us unpack this, we have two amazing guests with us today. First, we have Emily, who grew up in a small rural town and currently works in agriculture.
Hi, everyone. I am excited to be here.
And we also have Jake, a city native who works in tech and has lived in several major cities around the world.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's start by defining what we mean by rural and urban. Emily, how would you describe rural life?
Rural life typically involves smaller populations, being closer to nature, and often having a slower pace. It's very community-focused, and agricultural activities play a significant role.
And Jake, how about urban life?
Urban life is characterized by larger populations, industrial and commercial centers, and a much faster pace. There are more amenities and a variety of cultural activities, but it can also be more hectic.
Emily, can you share a personal anecdote about growing up in a rural area?
Sure. Growing up, our town was so small that everyone knew each other. We had just one school and one grocery store. It was peaceful and tight-knit, which I loved. I remember our local fair being a big event every year. Everyone would come together to celebrate.
Jake, what's your experience from an urban perspective?
Growing up in the city meant access to a lot of opportunities and activities. There were always new places to explore, but it could feel a bit overwhelming at times. I remember spending weekends visiting museums, attending sports events, and enjoying various festivals.
It's interesting to see how both settings have their own unique charm and challenges. Let's move on to the quality of life in rural versus urban areas. Emily, what are the pros of rural life?
The peace is unbeatable, and the community ties are incredibly strong. The cost of living is generally lower, and you're constantly surrounded by nature. You get to enjoy the fresh air, open spaces, and a slower pace of life, which can be very relaxing.
And what about the cons?
Limited access to healthcare and education and fewer job opportunities can be challenging. Sometimes, it feels a bit isolated, especially when you need to travel far for certain services or amenities. There's also less entertainment and dining options compared to the city.
Jake, how would you describe the quality of life in urban areas?
There's always something to do, from restaurants to theaters to events. Job opportunities are plentiful, and public transport makes getting around easy. However, it can be expensive and stressful. The cost of living is higher, and the hustle and bustle can sometimes be overwhelming.
So, Emily, you enjoy the sense of community and peace in rural life. Jake, you find excitement and convenience in urban living. Interesting contrast. Both have their benefits and drawbacks, but it really depends on what kind of lifestyle you prefer.
Let's examine the economic opportunities in rural and urban settings. Emily, what are the economic opportunities in rural areas?
Agriculture is a big one, along with local businesses, and now, with the rise of remote work, more people are able to work from rural areas. Many people in rural areas run family businesses, farms, or work in industries like forestry and fishing.
Jake, how does this compare to urban areas?
Cities offer diverse industries, higher wages, and more job prospects. The competition is fierce, but the career growth opportunities are vast. You can find jobs in technology, finance, marketing, and more. There's also a lot of innovation happening in cities, which can lead to exciting career opportunities.
So, there are unique economic benefits and drawbacks to both settings. In rural areas, you might have fewer options, but a close-knit work environment. In urban areas, there are more opportunities, but also more competition.
Now, let's discuss education and healthcare. Emily, what's the educational experience like in rural areas?
Schools tend to be smaller with fewer resources, but there's a strong sense of community involvement. You really get to know your teachers and classmates well. However, sometimes the quality of education can be affected by limited resources and facilities.
And what about healthcare?
It can be a struggle with fewer hospitals and longer travel times. However, you often have personal connections with your healthcare providers, which can make the experience more comfortable and personalized.
Jake, how does this compare to urban education and healthcare?
Urban schools are larger and have more resources and diverse programs, but they can be impersonal. There are more opportunities for extracurricular activities and advanced courses, but it can be easy to get lost in the crowd. Healthcare facilities are advanced with more specialists, but the costs can be higher and it can be more impersonal.
It seems both education and healthcare have their pros and cons in different settings. In rural areas, the personal touch is strong, but resources might be lacking. In urban areas, there are more options, but also more people to compete with.
Let's talk about social life and community. Emily, what's social life like in rural areas?
It's very close-knit. People know their neighbors well, and there are lots of community events. It's a very supportive environment where everyone looks out for each other. We have community picnics and fairs, and everyone gathers for local sports events.
Jake, how about urban social life?
There's a lot of diversity and cultural events. You can meet people from all walks of life, and there's always something to do, from nightlife to art galleries to concerts. But it's also easy to feel anonymous and disconnected because the community is so large.
So, rural areas have strong community bonds, while urban areas offer more social opportunities but can feel isolating. It's a trade-off between having a tight-knit community and having a wide range of social activities.
Next, let's discuss the environmental impact and sustainability. Emily, what's the environmental situation like in rural areas?
There's a lot of potential for sustainable living, especially in agriculture. Pollution levels are generally lower, and people tend to be more connected to the land. However, there can be issues with waste management and access to renewable energy sources.
And urban areas, Jake?
Cities have higher pollution, but there are significant efforts towards green cities and sustainability. Public transport helps reduce the carbon footprint, and there are more initiatives to promote recycling and renewable energy. However, the sheer volume of people and activities means that pollution is still a big issue.
Balancing environmental concerns is crucial in both settings. In rural areas, you have the advantage of space and nature, but resources might be limited. In urban areas, there's more pollution, but also more efforts towards sustainability.
Now, let's explore technology and connectivity. Emily, what are the tech challenges in rural areas?
Internet access can be a big issue. However, it's improving, and technology is becoming more important for rural businesses and remote work. There's still a gap in access to high-speed internet and other tech resources compared to urban areas.
And urban areas, Jake?
Urban areas benefit from advanced infrastructure and a tech-driven lifestyle. Everything is more connected, which can make life more convenient. You have access to high-speed internet, tech hubs, and various online services that make everyday tasks easier.
Technology shapes daily life differently in rural and urban settings. In rural areas, there are challenges but also opportunities for improvement. In urban areas, technology is more integrated into everyday life.
Finally, let's look at future trends. Emily, what do you see for the future of rural areas?
I think remote work will continue to grow, allowing more people to live in rural areas. There's also potential for rural revitalization with new technologies and sustainable practices. People are looking for a slower pace of life and more space, which could drive more interest in rural living.
We're likely to see more smart cities and urban expansion. Sustainability efforts will become even more crucial as cities grow. Innovations in public transport, housing, and energy will shape the future of urban living. There's also a trend towards creating more green spaces within cities.
It'll be interesting to see how these trends reshape rural and urban landscapes. Rural areas might become more connected and attractive to people seeking a different lifestyle, while urban areas will continue to evolve with technological and sustainable advancements.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We've covered a lot of ground on rural versus urban life.
Emily and Jake, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences.
Thank you for having me. It was great to discuss this.
Yes, thanks a lot. It was a fun conversation.
And thank you to our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Rural Life vs Urban Life.
Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. For more such conversation, please subscribe to Great English Podcast and share with your friends. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and have an awesome day.